Welcome to Health Oddity, the show that strips away the jargon and hype surrounding all things health and fitness to help you live a long, strong and energetic life. Lining up at the bar this week, here's Peter Lant, Paul Bassett and James St. Pierre.
Hello and welcome to the Health Oddity podcast, episode 83. Now, today we have myself, and I will obviously introduce Peter and Paul in a minute, but we've got some stuff to discuss today based upon the fact that the last weekend we all were with David Keohan at Unique Results doing his one-day workshop, which we'll talk a lot about today and what we got from it. We also have got quite an in-depth question from a listener, which we're going to give a little bit of time to answering, because it's not a straightforward kind of one, and we're all going to have different stuff to share around that. And then we'll also see where the conversation takes us. So first of all, Mr. Peter Lant in Bath, how are you doing, sir?
I'm doing very well. You can see me this week because I've got my lights are back. Look, it's on.
He is illuminated. It was getting dark last week, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was a bit dark because the lights weren't working, but the guy came round on there. You see, this is one of the things. This is why we need coaches and why we need professionals and all that, right? Because I had a look at it and I couldn't work it out. Got an electrician round, 20 minutes, done. So there you go.
Excellent. And before I introduce the next co-host, I will say we did actually have an offer to set up a crowdfunding campaign to improve the mic and Wi-Fi quality of Mr. Paul Bassett. But see if you can notice anything different when he talks today. He's got just see if you can notice the difference in the dulcet tones, the smooth voice. How are you, Mr. Paul Bassett?
Hi, yeah, I'm just auditioning for my Radio 4. They've always got the most smooth, the best mics, haven't they? The Radio 4 kind of hosting. I know I really see Health Oddity as merely a stepping stone to greater things for myself, you know.
It's like we were saying before we started recording, though. It does look like you're holding a hairdryer.
Well, I'm just glad it's not pink.
Not that you need a hairdryer, really.
Yeah.
Stick your head out the window and it'll be done in about 3 seconds, right?
I don't know.
Yeah, no, I'm fine.
Sorry, I was going to say, Pete, are you getting close to your mic? I'm getting some crackling on your mic today, but I don't know if it's just my.
That was because it's probably my beard rubbing up against it. To be honest.
Okay. The beard is getting bigger, so he needs to keep the beard further away from the mic. I'm trying to adjust my. Okay.
I think I'm getting a bit of crackling as well, so maybe it's I don't want to get a bit cocky here, right? Just because I got a new mic, but I think you're pushing the volume into the red, and it's cracking.
Is that better?
That's better.
That's better. Yeah, keep your distance.
Right. I've worked out now why Brian Blessed has got such a loud booming voice, because he's always had a beard and he has to stand back from the microphone, so therefore he has to shout. Right there, you go.
I really wish you could do an impression.
So, yeah, what me and Brian Blessed? Nah.
Have you heard the story about him delivering a child on Wimbledon Common?
No.
Yeah, no. Well, you just got to. You can search for it online.
Okay.
It's mad. It's crazy. It's brilliant.
Okay.
We'll take your word for it.
So first of all,
he punched a kangaroo, I think.
So first of all of us were with David Keohan, Irish Move athlete, over the weekend. He came to Unique Results. We picked him up Saturday evening. We had a full day with him Sunday, a morning of Kettleyoga and mobility exercises. We did that for about 3 hours. And then the afternoon was kind of deep diving into kettlebell sport and the techniques. I think we need kettlebell sport. Yeah,
we need the. It's not an acronym, but we need the hammer, because Kettleyoga isn't doing yoga with a kettle. Because that
it's not.
That'd be a bit weird, wouldn't it?
I'm not even going to bother getting the hammer for that. No, it was kind of, so it's yoga positions and postures and mobility exercises that will enhance and improve the techniques that you use in kettlebell sport, which is something that we did. So how did you guys find it? What was the kind of how did you find the day? What did you take away from it? How did you feel afterwards? We've kind of had a little chat off camera about how we felt, the day after and the day after that. But yeah, what was the day like for you guys?
Well, for me, I mean, I followed Dave for a while on Instagram, and obviously he does ridiculous feats of strength and what have you. But when you see him do, so I'm going to use a few terms here that people might not know, but he does like sissy squats and the reverse Nordics and all of that, like the stuff he does, body weight stuff. His mobility is amazing. I mean, the reverse prayer, I think it's called, where he puts his hands together behind his back like that. I mean, there's not, if you can do that, you're doing all right, aren't you? Especially if you're really strong as well. And I say, especially if you're really strong, because people tend to think if you're strong, you lose mobility. But the thing that I've been thinking about a lot, and I've thought about this for years, but David says it a lot as well. He's like, mobility is strength and strength is mobility. You can't have one without the other, or you can, but they'll be compromised, either one without any other one. And we've spoke about this before. So I've seen him do all this stuff, which is why when we had him on here and then he was coming over, it was like, right, I want to go and meet him and I want to see what he does. And we were talking about this just before we came on air, weren't we? And it's nothing new, really, what he does. It's all been done before, but he thinks about it very specifically, and then he just applies it and does it over and over and over again. So he's just been doing this. He said he'd been like, it was like 5 or 6 years ago, people started noticing his mobility, didn't they? And said, how do you do that? And he'd noticed in the best guys in kettlebell sport, their mobility was really good. Like the Russian guys, their overhead mobility was great and his wasn't. So he was battling against the weight all the time rather than just being comfortable in that position. So, yeah. So, and I mean, I was struggling with pistol squats last week. And I'd said it to Paul. It was, well, for the last few weeks, I'd been struggling. Just kind of, it felt like I had tight hips, which was inhibiting the movement. But I was actually using quite a heavy weight and doing a lot of volume. And so over the weekend, on the Sunday, it was all day Sunday. It gave me confidence that actually my hip mobility is okay with the stuff that we went through. But then on Sunday night, Paul, he sent me a message saying, okay, we'll dial it back and take it easy, and then started typing. You can see them when they're typing, and then he sent my program through, which I sent to you guys, didn't I? He sent my program through, and he was like, oh, you might see that I've changed my mind, and he'd actually given me, it was build up to a maximum weight to see where you're at, see what you can do. So it wasn't loads of volume, it was just build up with the weight. And I was like, okay, but so I started to do that on the Monday morning, the day after, driven back for 3 hours and stuff like that. And I hit a 5 kilo PR in my pistol squat. And I was very close to. So my goal is to pistol squat the beast, the 48 kilo. And I managed to do 45 kilos because I've only got a 40 kilo bell. So I just strapped a 5 kilo weight to it. And I managed to do 45 kilos on each leg. And it was very easy. And the mobility felt great. So actually, that was an immediate impact from just that one day with David. And I told him, and he was like, "Brilliant! I'm glad to be part of that." So that's what I got from it. And that was, it was really good. It was a great weekend.
How about you, Paul? What was your overall impression of the day, and what did you take away from it?
It was great. I mean, I hadn't seen you guys since we initially. Well, I hadn't seen Peter since 2015. So obviously we see each other weekly on.
Yeah, we
on
see
Zoom.
each other once every 7 years.
Yeah, I know exactly. Yeah, it's about enough, isn't it? Do you think?
Yeah.
And one of your clients thought that I was had the impression that I was very small. So he couldn't believe that I've. Yeah. I think it's Paul Field. He thought I was much smaller than I am. So I don't know.
You're like, no, I'm just sitting down.
Yeah, I'm just sitting down. It's But anyway, as a shout out to him, he was very nice. Your crew was great, actually, James. You got really great clients, and they really. It's good to see, because obviously usually with CERT, you've got a lot of you've got a lot of trainers, and there were trainers there, but it's good to see just general population just being fascinated by how they can educate themselves around movement. And David certainly did that. He's definitely someone who walks the walk. He's very humble, and he was great to hang out with. And we obviously all went for a meal the night before, and that was great. And he, as Peter said, it's just the application. I think some of the best people we've spoken to. Well, we speak to loads of great people, but certainly what sets people, maybe the very high performers, apart is they just apply everything. He took us through that 15-minute warm up, which that without fact, it's not just telling us this is what you should do. He's doing it. He's doing every single thing he tells you, and that he's just probably done it for multiple years, and occasionally slots something new in if he's got a gap in what he's doing. But and I think what's interesting is it's very much like there's like physics, and then there's applied mathematics. There's like theoretical physics, and then there's that kind of applied mathematics. And it's like, if you want to build a rocket, you've got to actually have maths that works, rather than just sitting down in an armchair trying to work out something that you can't really test. And so his kind of kettle yoga was that very much for me. It's like, okay, well, we're going to have mobility. It's not just mobility, inverted commas. What does that mean? What does that actually do? It's like, well, I need to move better. I know I need to be more mobile, but what are the positions that I want to own? How do I need to organize my body under load, and how do I replicate that in a mobility practice that's going to allow me to slowly open up the areas that are limiting my sport? And for most of our clients, their sport is life, so they just probably need to squat a bit deeper. They need to have healthy hips. They need to be a little bit stronger here and there, and that's enough. But certainly when people just say, hey, you're a strength athlete, do yoga, it's going to make you better. What I do like is that David just said, well, yeah, I'll do yoga, but I want to spend the time on the things that are going to give me something back to my sport. There's no point working on the splits if it's not relevant to your sport, unless there is some carryover. So that's what I definitely noticed. And I was kind of pleased to know that a lot of the stuff I was integrating already with my clients. So it was good to see that I was on the right page with some of my own practice. As I don't know if you just said it now, Peter, or before, but my mobility wasn't as bad as I thought it was going to be. I could do a lot of the things. There's certain things which I struggled with, and definitely kind of opened my eyes to like, okay, that's where I need to put my attention. But it was great, and it was just good to see him in action, because I do kettlebell sport myself. So I really enjoyed watching how he, some of his technique tips for me were subtle, but they were the game changers, I think.
I'll tell you what was really good as well was, so there was a lot of people from James's gym there, a lot of James's clients. And, we've been to these things before, and you'll see people can't get into the positions, they're tight. So like Paul's just said, this gave me confidence that my mobility is okay, because I was starting to doubt it because of, because the pistol squats were getting harder. But actually I left it thinking like, do you know what? My mobility is pretty bloody good. But then, I asked David, I said, when you do these things, can everybody do what you're doing? Because everybody could get into the position. And he was like, no, there's usually 2 or 3 people who are really struggling, And I said, well, that's testament to James and his gym and the people who are there, and the people and the clients as well who come along, who listen, because everybody could do the stuff, which is kind of, it's not unheard of. But I mean, we go to things with other trainers, right? Who can't get into positions and what have you, who kind of know what they're doing. So that was really interesting. What about you, James, though? What did you get from
I was just going to say, because based upon what you both said, and specifically Paul, when he was talking about the kind of the purpose to the mobility or the positions or the stretching, because for those people who are listening who do kettlebells, I think David broke it down to 3 main kind of positions, didn't he? I think the first one was the double kettlebell sort of rack position that you often find yourself in. Then there was kind of like the second position, which was sort of like the overhead position, but with the knees bent.
Fixation, that's called.
Yeah, the fixation where you'd catch for a jerk.
Oh yeah, so you got the rack position, then you went into the first dip where you're about to throw the kettlebell up.
Yeah.
Then you went into the second dip where your arms are overhead and your knees are bent.
Yeah.
And then you
And
had
then
the top fixation.
the final kind of standing. So he kind of broke down the kind of what usually are, I suppose, traditional yoga poses, but broke down each of them to the ones that would help with each position, wasn't it? So it was really interesting from that point of view. It was
Well, I think that's
fantastic.
what. Sorry, I don't know.
Yeah, go on, sorry.
It's one of the reasons that the knees over toes guy is quite successful, I think, is because he said, "Look, I want to be better at basketball. So, so what are the exercises that are going to increase my capacity within? You know, what are the ancillary kind of accessory exercises?" And it's very much similar principle, I think.
And it was great. And I've used some of the. I actually had spent a long time intentionally not doing mobility and stretching and rolling and stuff, because I'd actually had quite a lot of problems with my back for a long time. And I think I was actually doing, well, it was Roger McCarthy who sort of said to me that I think I was doing too much of that stuff when really I needed to let everything settle down and actually get more stable, you know? So I'd actually gone away from specifically, and I used to do a lot of kind of ground force method and a lot of FMS type stuff and foam rolling and yoga, and I stopped it intentionally, and my back actually got a lot better. I was still getting mobility through all the strength training I was doing through moving through full ranges of motion, you know, so I can still, so that was actually quite good that when we went back to all the mobility stuff at the weekend, I could still do it. Most of the stuff, obviously some side, you know, one side's usually a little bit better than the other on certain movements and things, but that was really good. And I just found the afternoon section as well, just focusing on the kettlebell sport is something that I'd never done before, having only really done the hard style stuff. So doing the kettlebell sport and learning the difference in the swing and just everything, the way you relax and the way your body moves. I mean, I've got a big old bruise about the size of an apple on the inside of my left knee, because he got us slightly staggering our stance when we were doing some of the movements. And I was doing snatches, I think with an 18 or a 20 or something. And I think I may have had the wrong foot forwards, or I wasn't used to having one foot forwards. And it came down, as it came down, it just caught the inside of my knee.
Yeah.
And I've got a massive bruise there, and it's really, really sore. But I mean, it was a totally different experience. It was really good, and I really enjoyed it. And it was great, like you say, to see lots of other trainers and the guys. There was 20 of us in the room, including myself and Nikki, and 10 of those 20 were also, you know, were members of the gym. So like you say, there was 8. There was yourself, you two, and 8 other guys, and I think all the other 8 people were trainers, you know.
So did you sell it to your clients by saying, look, there's 2 styles of kettlebells. There's hard style, really powerful, explosive. Then there's soft style, and it's going to be pretty easy. It's going to be nice and relaxed. You know, it's just a much softer style of kettlebells. Yeah, is that how you sold it to them?
I think they were really probably sold on the kind of the more the kettle yoga and the kind of, because a lot of them, I think we had 2 men there, and then there were 8 ladies, weren't there? I think from the gym, from my place. So I think they really were warm to more the mobility and the yoga side, and the fact that the whole morning was that. And they all also do train with kettlebells to a certain extent. But I think that kind of was almost like the gateway in, because it was more like yoga and mobility, and it was very, very good.
I think the hip mobility that he went through as well was from a book he's putting together, wasn't it? So that's not out there anywhere at the minute, and that was really good what he did. I've been using that this week, and it was amazing. And he's bringing a book out on that as well. So we haven't actually we've just had to remember it, haven't we? But he was going through it.
I've actually got about 8 or 10 videos he sent me that I'm going to upload somewhere. Then I'll send you links to them.
All right.
But yeah,
there was some kind of hybrid kind of approaches to things. You know, there was some stuff like some contract relax technique. There was some functional range conditioning where you're using tension. Obviously there was the yoga side.
I don't know if we spoke about this before as well, but I've used this with people, but the active passive window as well that he was talking about. So you've got your passive range of motion where you can, I don't know, you can do it by standing on one leg and pulling your knee up to your chest is like, you know, as far as it'll go. And then you're like, okay, and then you let go and catch it where, like, I don't know, you just let go and then catch it wherever it is.
Yeah.
So for that range of motion, if you can pull your knee towards your chest, let it go and it stays there, brilliant. There's no gap. But for like most people, that'll drop slightly and then you'll catch it. So that window is kind of, if you're under load, that's where injury happens, doesn't it? So you can pull your knee up a certain height with your muscles, and then when you grab it and pull it further, it'll actually go there, but you haven't got control of it. And that's the window that you want to close.
I think that's what I don't know if he referred to it as, or I've heard someone else refer to it as, I think it was him, referred to him that was the kind of, you know, the injury window or the injury gap, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
That where physically your body can go into that position, but you can't, if it does, you can't actively control it in that position. So that's where you're going to, you know,
so that's what we've spoken about before, isn't it? With mobility, stability, and motor control, and being able to access the movement is fine, but if you can't control it there,
well, just imagine you're doing something like judo or you're doing jiu-jitsu, and someone puts you in some kind of lock in your arm and pulls it into external rotation. What can you do if you don't have any control? Then that's an area where you either tap out, or it gets, you know, you damage your tendon or muscle or something like that, unless you move your body fast enough to get out of position. I remember speaking to a physio who specialized in rugby players, and he said, look, you know, they all spend all that time doing bench press. They're incredibly strong at it. But then when they go into a tackle, they usually have their arms straight. The arm goes behind them, and then they get a tear from that because they've never strengthened that range. They've only strengthened the bench press range. And so it's you know, if you're going to be exposed to these movements under stress, you have to make sure that you're training under.
I saw somebody do this in one of the Globo gyms like round here. I was in there once. I can't remember why, but she had really great really great mobility. She had, you know, she was very bendy. And she stuck 90 kilograms on a back squat and just dropped straight down into it. And it caught on the safety bars, which were really low.
Yeah.
And she just dropped straight down into it, caught on the safety bars. And she went, oh, thank God I've got a great range of motion. And I just thought, your tendons and ligaments have just been like hammered there. You know, if that safety bar wasn't there, you haven't got muscles holding that. It doesn't matter if you can get into the position or not. She didn't control it. And tendons and ligaments would have been, you know, they were what was holding our hips in place, rather than the muscles. So it's a big deal.
Well, what we'll do from this point, that was really good, and I think we all, you know, just a quick shout out to David. It was a fantastic weekend. We've had universally fantastic feedback on it, and really good to see, you know, so many people, lots of people who listened to Health Oddity there as well, which was great, including the official Health Oddity fan club leader, Mr. Paul Field, who turned up with his Health Oddity hoodie.
Right, it's gonna be a bit like Frasier. You know, when Frasier's fan club shows up and there's only like two of them and they're all a bit weird. it's gonna be.
I was the only one who wasn't branded.
No, and you look like you say, you look like a patient who'd been dragged into the. Was it you who said that? I hope that's not.
Yeah, it was me actually.
Yeah,
it's all right. As long as it was no one else. Yeah.
You were a patient who was stood there not knowing who was around him. But no, that was good. So to lead us on from this kind of part of the conversation to this question that we had, we touched upon it a few weeks ago. We didn't really touch it because it was such a big subject. And I think that today we've got, you know, next week we've got Kelly Manzoni on with us. So we've got a great guest coming on from the US next week. But for today, we had a bit of time. We thought we'd maybe try and, you know, discuss this question. And we haven't sounded each other out. We don't know what each other's going to say. But it was a question from Les, which was around, do you have any standards that you like people to be able to do, you know, in terms of physical preparedness or tests or certain abilities or things that you like your members or your clients to do. And standards are something that we've had Dan John obviously 4 times, and Dan John's got his standards, but they're very much standards for athletes that he has. And I know when we spoke to him, he said standards for everyday people is very, very difficult because, you could have a 30-year-old man, you could have a 60-year-old lady, you could have all different kinds of things going on. So, but we want to kind of have this conversation and see if there are any universal things that we like to try to help people do, or we like to, to work towards. And Les himself is in his 60s. And I know he said, standards for kind of like, the older people, I suppose. If we were to sort of think about clients who are 40 plus, I suppose, everyday people, everyday jobs, who maybe come and train, 2, 3, 4 times a week, maybe, and things we want them to be able to do. How would you tackle this, Peter? Do you have anything like that? Do you have any thoughts around this?
Yeah, I've got loads.
Good. Well, has it been a very short podcast?
Some of them I can't share. No. So when it depends how you look at it. So when we're talking about standards, I think some people look at it of like, you should be able to deadlift this, bench this many pull-ups, all of that, which is fine for conditioned people who know what they're doing, right? But for a person who's starting out, so say like, kind of listeners who we speak to mid 40s, say, or older, just starting out or haven't done any exercise for years, which is kind of the people who are trained. And I say that's the people who are trained. Most of the people I train now aren't that, because they've been with me for years, like 3, 4, 5 years. So they've moved on from there, but that's where they started. So I would say the standards for that is to be able to, like we've just been talking about, access positions and own them. So we start out with very light weights, and we'll just do. There's like millions of different assessments you can do with and what have you, but I just try and get them into positions with that don't make them feel stupid for a start, because there's some assessments that you do on people and they're like, it just makes them look silly because they can't do it. So it's like, let's see what you can do, and we'll work on strengthening that, and then that'll carry over into other stuff. And where I want to get my guys to is when they turn up for a session, I don't want to be kind of like, right, we're going to have to do a massive warm up and all of this mobility and all of this to get you started, which is fine. There's nothing wrong with that. And then do the thing, and then all this massive cool down and all that, which is all very important. But we can use weights and build up to that. How do I put this? I mean, basically, it's just being ready to go, because some people get up out of their chair and it takes them like 10 minutes to be able to move properly. You know what I mean? And I'd like, for I say my goal for the guys, but like they've all got their own goals and stuff like that. But it's harder to reach those. So this goes with, like I say, what we're doing this weekend. It's harder to reach those if you can't access positions, you can't own them, and you can't. And if you have to do a massive like 10, 15 minute stretch routine and warm up and all that to be able to actually start doing stuff, there's going to be an issue there. So my goal is to get them to be able to just turn up in the morning, and I'll go, right, do a few swings, do a few squats. How's everything feeling? Because that tests your joints, right? Like this is moving all right. This is moving all right. Because most of them do mobility at home and stuff. So, it's to get them to that point and then just say, right, here's what we're doing today. Let's go. And then if there's any issues throughout, we'll focus on them. But now most of my guys, they just rock up, quick 2 minutes, just moving around, checking joints, checking this works, just check that works, and then off we go. And they're all really good at that. They're all really good because they do stuff at home as well. So I mean, I don't know if that answers the question, but because this is a massive topic, isn't it? And there's obviously different standards for men and different standards for women and all that. But for me, especially with my own experience as well, for myself, of having a weight as a standard or having a certain amount of pull-ups or whatever as a standard, I ended up getting sore and hurting myself. before I started to focus on the standard, just being able to do the movement. And then once I can do the movement, then I can start adding weight to it. And then that's where we started training with Paul and doing it within comfort zones and all of that. So,
okay, that's interesting. We'll maybe circle back round to some of what you said in a bit once we've heard from Mr. Paul Bassett with his new mic.
MSR, isn't it? Or ASMR, whatever it is. People who kind of really like listening to people speak slowly and quietly, isn't it?
It's different sounds, isn't it? It's everything. It's that sense. It's like the sounds of maybe bacon cooking, or the sounds of
that would annoy me.
You know, all those things. Right. Anyway, sorry.
I've got that Marks and Spencer's advert in my head where everything's really gloopy. And anyway, I'm being sidetracked. So yeah, I think if there's a standard, the standard. I think there's a mental standard, I think, in terms of confidence. So I think one of the standards we want to bring people up to is a certain level of confidence where they want to explore movement, and they want to be, and they trust their body enough to start picking and opting to go heavier. So typically a lot of people we work with haven't had a lot of experience being trained in strength training, or they've never come across a barbell. They've seen them, they've never used them, they've never used a kettlebell, they've never been taught any of these things, and so everything's a little bit intimidating. So there's that kind of confidence standard where they start having the spirit of exploration, this trust in their body. I think that's a good standard to try and get people to, and usually start seeing that over the course of the first month, where I don't know about you guys, but you say, okay, pick a kettlebell, pick a medium-sized kettlebell, pick this, pick that, and people start choosing heavier ones. They're like, oh, can I go for the 20 kilo? Can I go for the 24? Blah, 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 and that's always a great standard. I mean, as part of what I do with my business, every month we focus on a different movement, and I set standards based around that, what I think people can achieve, having seen what the population I train are able to do, and what we think we can train someone up to achieve in a month. So I give four levels 1, 2, 3, and then an advanced one. And the advanced one will start bordering on something which would be typically challenging. So for example, at the moment, I've got the kettlebell front squat with 2 kettlebells as the focus for the month. What that allows us to do is teach people how to control 2 kettlebells, to teach people how to clean a kettlebell, because often we've got clients who can swing a kettlebell, we've got clients who can deadlift, we can get clients who can press, but they have no idea how to get a kettlebell up into a rack position in order to press it overhead. So it gives us an opportunity to do some secondary assistance work. And then the standards for that, for example, like for level 1 is 2 12 kilos kettlebells for 10 reps. And that's for a woman, going up to 2 14s, 2 16s, and then advanced would be 2 20s. So I've got a couple of female clients who I think could be able to hit the 2 20s.
And that's for 10 reps, all of it.
10 reps, yeah. And so it gives someone aspirational. It gives them a bit of an aspiration as well. So I probably will, by the end of the year, cycle back to that kind of standard. And those clients who've been with us that time will be able to see if they've made progress. And they'll certainly see progress over the course of the month. And then, I did it with swings where we were doing 200 swings in 10 minutes. And I'd have similar standards like 12, 16, 20, 24. Or actually, I didn't go up to 24 for women. I think we went up to 20 kilos, and we had the option to do single arm swings or 2-handed swings. So within that, we're working on I think there is standards in terms of strength, and then there are standards in terms of movements. So we've got confidence, then we've got movement patterns as standards. So a hinge standard, so say kettlebell swing, a press standard, so they've got to be able to do something overhead. They've got to squat in some capacity. They've certainly got to be able to get up and down off the floor. That's a challenge for a lot of people. It's definitely a human standard, is be able to use your own body weight and get up and down. And within that, there are some other things, but really we need to have a standard around squats, deadlifts, and press, and then everything else on that is kind of gravy, really.
No, that's good. I mean, it's interesting to have. I mean, when people join us, we use the Dan John, the 1, 2, 3, 4 assessment, and the physical thing. And again, when I think the problem is sometimes we talk about standards, and when you say it, so it's good that you kind of quantified and clarified what you said, Paul, was you kind of know the standards that you're looking for the kind of people that you train and for your members, so these standards aren't obviously for every single member of the population, and we understand that there's people, of mixed abilities, and some people have, maybe medical conditions going on, or disabilities, or, they can't move very, very well. So there's different things. But when we do the 1, 2, 3, 4, the first thing we do is a push-up position plank, just to be in a push-up position plank, top of a press up, palms on the floor, straight elbows, holding that position. And we time how long they can hold that for on day one. And we kind of say the gold standard is 2 minutes. Some people, probably, I don't know, maybe 20% of people who come in could do that for 2 minutes on first go, but some people maybe 20 seconds or 30 seconds or 10 seconds or whatever. So that's something that we do. We also do the get down and get back up kind of test or assessment, and just sort of see how people do that, as just something to begin with for day one. We do, if they're able to, do the standing long jump from standing start, to see if they can jump there. Or most people, this is the one that most people can't do, is to jump their height, horizontally across the floor. The majority of people can't do that, especially with our client base, 40 plus, 50 plus, because most people, including myself, you don't tend to jump in day-to-day life, do you? I mean, the vast majority of people probably haven't jumped since school, some kind of sport, I would imagine. I don't know. Do you find that, guys, yourself, in terms of jumping?
Yeah, we don't do much jumping. We certainly don't do box jumps, because it's just the quickest way to injure one of my clients.
yeah. But even just jumping, just taking both feet off the floor at once, very few people actually ever have to, and it's even jumping up something like 6-inch curb or something, it's quite unnerving for people, but we do that, and then we do the farmer's walk as well, but it might only be first day they come in, they might just pick up a pair of 8-kilo kettlebells or a pair of 12-kilo kettlebells, but the goal would be long term to get them towards a total of body weight, spread across the two hands. And then the final one that we've started doing, again, and this isn't where you kind of gauge where people are when they come in, but I also like doing now just a straight arm sort of hang, from a nice sturdy bar, Pete.
Honestly, when I came to yours, I did a couple of pull-ups on that, and I was like, "Oh, this is lovely." So much easier.
But just a straight arm hang, and again, most people have never hung with their body weight since the playground, and since
that's a massive one, because I've had people do that who've got bars at home, like above their doors and or outside or what have you. And and the thing, you go, I always ask them, how long do you think you'll be able to hold it for? And they always think it's like a minute or so or longer. And it's like 10 seconds, and and then their grip's going.
It's because the hands get so sore. For most people, they're not.
But this is people who want to do a pull-up or a few pull-ups. And I'm like, if you want to do 5 pull-ups, that's going to take it's going to take 10 seconds or 15 seconds. So if you can't hang on the bar that long, then hanging on the bar while pulling yourself up is going to be way harder. So it's a huge.
So again, for that one, we have a kind of a gold standard, if you like, and I think it's quite nice because we give people these. I kind of say whatever you do today is absolutely fine, and there's no kind of judgment on what they can do when they walk in. But to give them like the gold standard of, eventually if you can hang for 2 minutes, which is a lot harder than doing a plank for 2 minutes. To hang for 2 minutes is a lot harder than doing a plank for 2 minutes. But it just puts that little seed in people's minds, and something, and it's so simple. Certainly the push-up position plank, I encourage people to go home and, show it to, the husband, the wife, or the partner, or the kids, and just try and do one, every day for the first week. And they can usually add sort of 5 seconds a day, 5 or 10 seconds a day.
I get new people and my guys to do it a lot, and I talk about it online and stuff like that, and I just do like the odd little mobility move, which is quite fun, and then go, right, do this with your kids, and they'll wipe the floor with you. And they all do. And the crow pose that we did with David at the weekend, I've been doing that with a few people beforehand anyway, like the frog one, the beginner one, and then you can get into crow pose and all that. And I did it with a lady who wants to get a headstand. So, which is great. And her husband's been coming for years, and she started coming last year. So she's called Nikki. And she's really strong. I mean, Paul was talking about the standards there. She does 10 sets of 10 with 216s and in squats and all that sort of stuff. And 10 sets of 10 with 212s pressing them with doubles. She did that the other day. But anyway, so her husband's been coming for about 5 years. So I gave her the frog pose stance to do. And she went home and she was like, because she got it, she nailed it. So she went home and said to him, like, oh, have a go at this. Peter got us to have a go at this. And him and the kids did it straight away, no problem. And she was like, that's not fair. And I was like, yes.
And one of the other standards, which comes from and it's not a standard that I use, but I did after we had him on the podcast. I think I shared it with my group and my members, and then people really got into it. Was when James Brees came on, and he said about can you walk? I think it was it 1.5 miles in 20 minutes?
Yes, something like that. Yeah,
something like that. And that was really good because so you might have someone say, well, you've got to be able to run a mile in 10 minutes or 9 minutes or 8 minutes or whatever. But I think that 1.5 mile walk in 20 minutes, or just walk for 20 minutes and see how far you get, and then try and gradually better that. I think is a really good. Because I think that's the thing that we've all probably touched on and agree with, that standards, and I know, same as you, Pete, when I've got these standards, I've got to hit for certain certifications and courses, the pressure's on to get there. And often you try and speed up the process maybe a bit quicker than physiologically your body can, because you've got a time deadline and you think, I've got to be able to do it by then. So you maybe try and rush a few steps and things like that. Whereas when you just have something that's fairly fluid and you give someone a goal of, say, walking 1.5 miles in 20 minutes, or holding a 2-minute push-up position plank, or hanging from a bar for 2 minutes, they're very simple things that they can just do every day, aren't they? That don't require any equipment or any stuff that's going to make them better,
There's something you've just said there. And so the standards for certifications, I was listening to Finn on Chris Lowe. Chris Lowe's got a podcast. So Chris Lowe, the nutritionist who we've had on the podcast, has got a podcast, and he interviewed Finbar Tulin, who we've also had on the podcast, who's a kettlebell sport champion. And Finn was saying, so this goes with what I've been thinking about in answer to Les's question as well, because no doubt Les is a bit of an all-rounder. Is he? Yeah. So Finn was saying he's never more than 3 to 5 weeks out of competition readiness all year round. That's how he trains. And he's not overdoing it. That's just where he's at. So if for some reason a competition came up in 5 weeks and he was like, I'm going to be ready for that, and he could be ready from the point he's at now. So he's generally prepared. Just in general, he's prepared, which is what I was saying about my guys. I just wanted to be able to rock up and get on with it. So obviously that's not at the same level, but it's at their level. So you've just said about the certifications there and standards. Now, years ago, I used to try and push to get to the standards. Whereas now, with training within comfort, but expanding the comfort zone, apart from the SFL, which I'm not sure about because I haven't used a barbell for ages, I could do any of them, tomorrow. Because I've got myself to that level.
Well, they've been absorbed within your comfort zone.
Within the trade, my comfort zone is expanded to encompass standards. So like I say, the barbell course, the double bodyweight deadlift, I'm not sure about. I might be able to, I might not do. But with the way I've been training, I know I could train to get there.
I think someone online the other day I saw it might have been Peter Luffman, I'm not sure, but someone sort of said to you, they'd seen your pistol squat, and then they said, "Oh, have you noticed, is your barbell back squat gone up a lot since that?" And you sort of said, "I've not touched a barbell for 2 years."
I've no idea. I imagine it probably has. Yeah. But so to answer Les's question, if Les is a bit of an all-rounder and wants to be able to do, I don't know, swimming and tennis and played a bit of golf
cricket and bowls and
all of that, right? General physical preparedness for that. So GPP, which you might see around, Mark Rifkin talks about a lot, is basically just being generally fit and strong, just to be able to do anything, to go. So to be able to say from here, I'm going to focus on this and go and do that, and be able to do it at a relatively good standard, but get better at it, whatever it is. So that's so Finn being ready, like 5 weeks away, me being able to say I can do these certifications without having to really train for it anymore. And saying that without having to train for it, that's because I've trained for it for 8 years, basically. So it's just being in a general physical shape to be able to turn your hand to anything that you want, really. You know, and
when
I mean,
was driving,
that's obviously, you can't turn your hand to go powerlifting or gymnastics. Like, you can do gymnastics, but you know, to the level you get, you know, there's different levels, obviously, but just sport in general, recreationally, you know.
It's when I was driving David back to the airport on Monday, and we were having a conversation, and he said that because I put a post out last week or the week before, saying, you know, you can do anything, but you can't do everything. Trying to dissuade people from effectively trying to chase too many birds, you know. And it's one of the things that Dan John says, isn't it, that, you know, you try and chase too many birds, you don't catch any, because you're constantly being pulled in different directions. And he kind of said, and David had said, "Oh, I don't agree." Paraphrasing, I don't really agree. I think you can be good at lots of things.
Yes.
So then I had a really good conversation with him, and I said, he trains obviously 7 days a week, twice a day, many days, because he does his hour in the morning of his mobility in the kitchen and his body weight training, and then in the evening he'll do his kettlebells and everything else. But for the general population and the average person, I don't think it's probably practical or possible or wise to try and chase too many things. And he sort of said that what he actually does, or what he actually means, I suppose, if he explained it further, is that he has certain blocks of time, and it could be blocks of 2 years, say, where he really focuses on one thing. So when he did his kettlebell sport, it was probably more like 5 or 6 years that he really 100% focused on that. And then he came
not
out,
28 days then.
No, not 28 days. and then he'll go into a period of, and when he first started, he did running and he ran a marathon. So that was a kind of a running block. And then he had a kettlebell sport block. And now he's obviously involved in more the sort of the stone lifting kind of stuff. Yeah. So he has things that are his emphasis. But then what he said is that, so he's obviously not as good now as he was when he was competing at the Europeans or the World Championships in kettlebell sport. But he said, once you've learned and developed a skill, you don't lose it, like riding a bike. And it's kind of similar to what you're saying. He's got very, very good at it for a number of years, and he moved away from it. But if he needs to turn his hand to it again, he can just slot back in and probably spend 3 to 6 months, and he will be at a very, very good standard again. Yeah. So, but across the board, he is, you know, he's a high level on lots of things without really focusing on one thing at a time.
Right. I've got a book recommendation based on that.
Okay.
Pat Flynn, have you read it? The How to Be Good at Almost Everything, the Pat Flynn book.
Pat Flynn, we have to get on the podcast.
We do. Well, we? That's kind of one of the reasons I've mentioned it.
But how to be good at almost.
It's how to be good at almost everything. So it's brilliant, and he says a lot of things in it, but the general gist is, right, if you want to be a master at something, you focus on that thing and you become better at everybody else. But then you're good at that one thing at the expense of everything else. So you need to be bloody good at it. Otherwise, it's a waste of time
because
you've spent all of your time on that one thing. Like I say, at the expense of everything else. Whereas, like what you've just said about David, it's a perfect example. If you want to get good at kettlebell sport, right? You focus on that 100% for however long you need to, and David might be a bad example of this because he mastered it and all that sort of stuff, but you might get to 80% of mastery, whatever that is, right? We don't know what that is, but 80% of it, and that's good enough. You might get to 70%, which is going to be better than most people, right? Better than average. And if that's where you want to be, that's good. You've done that. So you haven't mastered it, but you've got better at it than the average population. So then you can take your focus away from that and focus on something else. So it's like what we spoke about balance of life and working on your job, or like more on your family or more on your fitness or whatever. So it's short-term specialization in a thing not at the expense of everything else, but you have to focus on that more than focusing on the other stuff. But then once you've got to a certain level, you can bring that focus down and then focus on something else and focus on something else, and everything starts to rise. You know what I mean? So you become and so that saying of being a jack of all trades and a master of none, there's nothing wrong with that. That's actually a good place to be. Because if you want to really master something, that's great, but you're going to be the person who's good at that one thing. So people want that one thing, they're going to come to you. But then once they've got that, you're done. You know what I mean? So
if you can pick things that are kind of synergistic as well. So what David was talking about, and I know he's posted quite a lot about it recently.
Yes,
is the mobility that he's got and his ability to get really, really deep into a squat makes him better at stone lifting.
Yes,
because
he
can
guys
go really deep and literally have his bum on the floor almost and get the stone in the right position and stand up. Whereas I think at the weekend he said some guys that are maybe 50 kilos heavier than him and a lot bigger and stronger can't lift as heavy stones because they're basically leaning forwards and trying to lift it all with their back because they can't get into this deep squat. So if you can pick things that are synergistic and work and complement each other to an extent as well. And I think that's where he's done so well with the yoga and the mobility complements the stone lifting and the kettlebell sport. And it all they all feed off of each other.
I'll put a link to the book in. I can't see it at the minute, but he uses David. So this is the Health Oddity podcast with an avocado with Ziggy Stardust on it, David Bowie influence and all of that sort of stuff. And he uses David Bowie as an example because David Bowie was obviously a singer, performer, but he went and did mime with that guy. I can't remember the name of the guy, but he found a guy who was really good at mime. So he started looking at that, and he went, he loved the Velvet Underground, so he was watching what they do, and he started to branch out into all these different things, but they all came together in his music and made him different to everybody else, right? And made it work and made him, so he wasn't like the best singer in the world, and he wasn't. I mean, people will get letters, but he wasn't the best singer in the world. He wasn't necessarily the best musician and all that, but it all came together as his performance, didn't it? So that's kind of what it talks about. It's a really good book, actually.
Well, that's I think, guys, we'll sort of start to wrap up there, but I think that's that question from Les about standards kind of as really kind of took us in a few different directions there, which I didn't think it would, but it's very, very interesting and thought-provoking. How would you like to say anything, Paul? You're kind of sat there with your mic. I know
he's got his new microphone in it, and he's been very sorry.
Clutching it. I don't know. I've actually forgotten the question. It's one of those ones where I'm listening, but at the same time, forgotten where we started.
We started around standards, didn't we?
Yeah. I can't remember
we circled back.
I think I had an opinion on that.
You did have an input already on that, and then we circled back round to finish off, to close the loop with talking about David again from the weekend. So I think that's pretty good.
I concur.
Mr. Peter Lamb, would you like to? You've already said quite a lot, I know. But
Yeah, don't worry about that. Go to Paul. Sorry. Sorry, you've been listening to the Peter Lamb show. Sorry. It's just one of those things, isn't it? When you can go off on these like it's that, like I said earlier, that's a massive question. So
no, but it's nice. Yeah. I think we've all had an input on it and talked about it, and hopefully it's been interesting to some people.
Well, they say I mean, it's good to have standards, and those standards that shouldn't act as a comparison. Yeah. In terms of like the comparison's the thief of joy, isn't it? So it's it's just something to evaluate where you are. I think a good thing about the weekend for me was, as Peter said earlier, my mobility is not as bad as I think it is. I've obviously done some work and it's come good in certain areas. I know areas that I need to work. Like my kettlebell sport is not bad. I got a nice compliment from David on my kettlebell snatch, which is good. They're just there to give you some way of latching on to something that's slightly ephemeral. If you're climbing if you're standing in front of a climbing wall, you just got to get to the top. Whereas when you're standing in front of a barbell or a kettlebell, how many times, how much weight, it's not as obvious. And so it's quite good to add a little bit of clarity around these kind of woolly pursuits. Strength and conditioning is quite woolly. A lot of the time I tell my clients, so what we do in class is to make everything else outside better. This shouldn't, you should enjoy our classes, but they shouldn't be like the focus of your day in a way. That they should be ring fenced, but they shouldn't be the focus of your day. Your family, your friendships, all those things are really important. And this makes it better. So, what is a standard? Well, how does it affect your life? If squatting 1,000 pounds is a standard for a powerlifter, but you can't walk and you're on a CPAP and you're, struggling with life, then you have to question whether or not that's a standard you need to get to. So, final thought.
So, like with everything, it's context dependent and it depends.
Yeah. There's our get out clause. Wriggle out of that one.
Okay. So thank you very much, guys, for listening. Next week, we will be back with Kelly Manzoni from Connecticut in the USA. We have sorted out our timings because their clocks have changed and ours haven't, but I think we've got to the bottom of what time it will be. So hopefully that will be going ahead next week when we speak with Kelly. Thank you so much again to everyone who came along last weekend to the David Keohan workshop. Thank you to everyone who listens and those who listen every week and send in questions and comments and write nice things to us. We really appreciate that. Please do like, share, subscribe, leave a review if you're on a platform that allows you to do that. And if you'd like to join the Facebook group, just go onto Facebook, into groups, search Health Oddity, and click on to join, and then we will let you in. Just want to say very quickly as well, a couple of well dones. Pete mentioned something earlier, but well done to two of my ladies this week, Yana and Tara, who both were doing crows and headstands earlier in the week. And well done to recent guest, Yay Burpees, Ben Morris, who just did his kettlebell half marathon, didn't he?
Did he get a British record or something in his weight and age class?
Something like that. I think he got a record, in weight.
I'm seeing him this weekend. I'll ask him about it.
Yeah. So well done to Ben. Well done again. We'll mention him again to Finbar Tulan, who coaches Ben. So Ben did very well in his first half marathon.
He had a video up and he was singing. He was singing
like, while he was doing it.
He was snatching it up, pulling it down, and singing. He's like, my coach is going to kill me for this.
No, well done, and well done to every. We love keeping in touch with all of you. We love seeing what everyone's up to on Instagram and things. So thank you very much. We will see you again next week. Take care. Bye-bye.
You've been listening to Health Odyssey with Peter Lant, Paul Bassett, and James St. Pierre. To get your regular fix of hype-free health, you can subscribe and leave a review wherever you get your favorite podcasts. You can find out more on today's and other topics at healthodyssey.com or find us on Facebook or Instagram by searching for Health Oddity.